Cardholders have the right to dispute credit card charges if they've been a victim of fraud or abuse. But why? Where do these chargeback rights come from? Well, it's actually an interesting story. The history of chargebacks starts way back in September of 1958, when 60,000 Bank of America customers randomly received one of these in the mail. These pieces of paper were some of the first modern credit cards. These novel payment methods were an interesting concept, but without consumer protections, they failed to see widespread adoption. So in 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Truth in Lending Act, or TILA, into law. And a few years later, in 1974, TILA was amended with the introduction of the Fair Credit Billing Act. This law created the framework for the modern chargeback process by requiring card networks to establish a process for resolving billing errors and protecting consumers against fraud. In response, Bank Americard and Mastercard, known as Visa and Mastercard, established the first chargeback process. Cardholders who had been victims of fraud were now protected. They could dispute charges that they didn't authorize. These rules were instrumental in establishing consumer confidence in credit cards. And for the first few decades, the chargeback process worked pretty well. But things began to change in early 2000s with the rise of e-commerce. Now, all of a sudden, customers can pay online rather than in person. The opportunities for banks and sellers were incredible. Card-not-present transactions are harder for merchants to validate, and consumers aren't immediately confident about purchasing products that they haven't seen in person. So, banks began to advertise their fraud guarantees, and more cardholders became aware of their chargeback rights. This spurred consumer confidence and helped usher in a golden age of online shopping. But as consumers became familiar with their chargeback rights, more began to abuse them. By 2010, misuse of the payment dispute process, usually referred to as either first-party misuse or just friendly fraud, started becoming a big problem for merchants. Some steps have been taken by card networks like Visa and Mastercard to push back against chargeback misuse. A lot more is going to be needed, though. The global e-commerce market is expected to reach a nearly $48 trillion in value by 2030. The next 10 years will be a critical chapter in the history of chargebacks and digital transactions. Issuing banks, card networks, and merchants will all play a part in forging the way forward. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.